Beyond all the law breaking over there at Twitter when they were censoring your right to see the Hunter Biden laptop story from the New York Post, there's also a major problem with regard to social media and how it fits into our everyday life. What were these people doing? I mean, the whole reason for Twitter in social media platforms is for people to freely exchange information and ideas, or have they just completely lost the plot? Jake Denton is at the Tech Policy Center over at Heritage Foundation. And this is kind of a bigger issue than just the illegality of this one action with Hunter Biden. This sort of calls into question everything about social media at this point, doesn't it, Jake?
Absolutely. There's obviously a culture of censorship within Silicon Valley, and they've gone to a great deal of work to create a censorship system, a real machine that can silence people across platforms. It's not isolated just to Twitter or Meta's platforms. It's really a culture now at this point, and it's going to cause all sorts of problems moving forward, and it's going to be a great task to try and unravel this.
And the fact that the Congress is getting involved, I know a lot of people are saying, well, will the Republicans refer this to the Justice Department? Will there be criminal charges? Ultimately, the Congress legislates, and they legislate and regulate as well. They create laws that allows agencies to regulate companies. Are we walking down that path? Should conservatives be in favor of the idea of regulating speech and regulating these social media platforms?
Conservatives should absolutely be in favor of regulation on these social media platforms because it's essentially uprooting our entire way of life. If you look at kind of the First Amendment infringements that we saw just through the Twitter files, I mean, this is an absolute challenge of our status as American citizens. If we're trying to message, if we're trying to really just exist in the same way we do in our day-to-day lives, but online, it's not going to be allowed. They're going to do everything they possibly can to make sure that our message and our voices do not get out there.
Well, here's what conservatives will say to that, though, Jake, and this is sort of where the conflict is that we see a problem there. Since when is the problem more government regulation? That always messes things up even more.
Well, the current problem that we're beginning to unravel, and which we saw in the hearing yesterday, the oversight hearing talking about the Hunter Biden laptop story, is that, big government has actually interwoven itself with big tech. And now we're trying to separate the two of these entities. We have a bill going potentially to the floor here soon, HR 140, which tries to essentially make it unlawful for government actors to outsource their censorship to Silicon Valley. But, we have a long ways to go here. And without regulation, if we just leave this up to, big tech to self-regulate, we're going to continue to have this cycle of, whether it be the FBI, the State Department, or one of these other entities knocking on their door and asking them to take down an American citizen. And that just can't be allowed. We have to do everything we can here to make sure our freedoms are protected.
I have a hunch, and I'd love for you to say, no, Larry, you're wrong. Talk me off the ledge here, Jake Denton. But I have a hunch that the reason why Twitter is getting all this interest and excitement over this story is because journalists are on Twitter, Donald Trump was on Twitter, politicians were on Twitter. But the fact of the matter is, Facebook and YouTube, where a lot of people are watching this video right now, have way more people using it to consume news and information. And I have a hunch, don't want to get in trouble, but I have a feeling Facebook and YouTube did the exact same thing. In fact, they're probably even worse than Twitter was.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is an established culture. So if you look at just the deposition, from Attorney General Eric Schmidt, who's now Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri, we saw this same thing happening at Meta, Facebook, where the White House would reach out to the platform and request certain accounts and certain posts to be taken down when discussing the issue of COVID. And this exists across all social media platforms. And so, yeah, we hone in on Twitter because we have the Twitter files, and, it's probably the most active platform for journalists and, public figures within the government space. But this is a problem that exists across the entire tech sector, and it's going to be an absolute task to try and unravel it, but it's something we need to, step up to the plate and do.
Well, you have 30 seconds to give me a thumbnail as to what this government regulation looks like. Does it fall under the FCC? Who's in charge?
Yeah, so that bill, HR 140 that I brought up, is the first step here. This is going to be something that stops government actors from going to these companies. And then, moving forward, this is going to be interregulatory approach. I mean, all these platforms do different things. All of them have different methods of censorship, and it's going to require all hands on deck and really everyone coming in here to step up to the plate.
My gut reaction is still somewhat skeptical of a government solution to this, but if it's coming from the Heritage Foundation, it's certainly worth noting. Jake Denton, always good to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And that is it for tonight. But we will be back right here, same time, same place. I mean, also on YouTube if this segment doesn't get us canceled. In the meantime, I'll see you on the radio.